Hello and welcome to The Nation. You're joining me, Elaine Noor Abdullah, coming to you live from our studios in West Panama in Kuala Lumpur. Now, as we begin the year 2022, we look back at the year 2021 and take stock of the lessons that we can learn to prepare us better to take on this coming year. Now, as the pandemic continues to rage, natural disasters have not stopped either, as with all the challenges in life as is. As such, this year is poised to be even more challenging as we deal with the knowledge that COVID-19 is here to stay and its resulting limitations is now part and parcel of everyday life. Now, today I speak to Tan Sri Lee Lam Thai, Chairman of the Alliance for Safe Community, on his thoughts about safety during natural disasters. Hello and welcome, Tan Sri. Pleasure to have you join us in conversation. Now, let's begin this conversation, Tan Sri, with you telling us a little bit more about the Alliance for Safe Community. Over to you, Tan Sri. Tan Sri?
Yes, Elena, first of all, thank you for having me as your guest to talk about the subject of safety, which from point of view is a matter of concern to all Malaysians. And in fact, it is something that is very close to my heart. Now, I am talking today in my capacity as the chairman of the Alliance for Safe Community. And I believe that this conversation will also enable me to present what safety community is all about and what the association is all about. Basically, we are an NGO that was set up about 3 years ago with the objective for bringing together a group of dedicated professionals who are very passionate about the subject of safety and health, and to be able to use this NGO, this Alliance for Safe Community, as a platform for them to educate and to create greater awareness among the community with regard to the subject of safety and health. Ultimately, what we want to do is to really help communitize safety, which actually means that instead of just having talk shows and dialogues and so on, we would like to take steps to ensure that issues concerning safety and health can be embraced and must be embraced by the community. And when I talk about the community, I'm talking about people from all strata of society. And very important, as I said, is to ensure that the ordinary Malaysians are fully aware of their responsibility with regard to ensuring safety in the community is not being put into practice, then we can anticipate there'll be more accidents, there'll be more disasters, and so on and so forth. So, as I said, I'm indeed very happy to represent Ikatan, or Alliance for Safe Community, to participate in this conversation.
Great, Tan Sri. Now, perhaps let me start with what are the fundamentals required for us to build a safety mentality and culture, and how far are we lacking here in Malaysia?
Now, what to me is really important, and I think for all of us here, is how we can get all people, all Malaysians, to embrace safety and to make safety a part of life, to make safety a culture. I have been involved in this area of safety and health for a good number of years, totaling about 27 years when I served the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And it is there that I had the opportunity of meeting a cross-section of the community, meeting with employers, meeting with industries, to impress upon them how important it is that the safety and health must be taken on board, not only by the employees, but also by the employers themselves. Now, what I'm trying to drive at eventually is this, that if we can find the time, as Malaysia, we can find the time to learn more about safety and health. If we can make time to ensure that we will pay attention to the very issues that can affect our health and safety, it will go a long way in helping to prevent accidents, in preventing disasters and so on. So the issue, as I see it, is this: that we must now, from my observations over, I would say that the safety culture has yet to emerge because many people are actually taking safety for granted. And they only talk about safety every time when there is an accident, for example, a road tragedy, or for example, people get drowned, or for example, there is a major accident, at the work site. Then they talk about safety. But after that, they will forget about whole subject and wait for the next incident, and they will start talking about it all over again. So I think it's important that we have got to pursue this safety agenda consistently. We have to do all that we possibly can. We must, for example, we must be aware of safety. We must take time off to learn about safety. We must be trained in safety. And if we were to do all that, then, as I said, I hope eventually we can develop a safety culture.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that point that you mentioned earlier, which is like the too late kind of mindset. We are only reactive once something bad has happened. We are not having a pre-mindset, which is the preparedness mindset. We don't have things that we have put in place and trained for us to be able to implement when something unforeseen happens. Usually we are a little bit in a panic scenario and sort of scrambling around to figure out what needs to be done, as opposed to having things done in a calm and collected manner because we have actually put some kind of measures and processes in place. So let's look at an example. I want to bring up this example of fire drills in Malaysia. There's a distinct lackadaisical attitude when it comes to performing safety drills. Can you comment on why this is so, and what can we do to improve and change this mindset? I mean, it's part of OSHA for a lot of companies to be able to ensure that these kind of processes are put in place. But every time you run a safety drill, you see that people will be like, waltzing down. I don't foresee that if it's an actual fire, people will be doing that. But when we do a safety drill, we have that same attitude. Perhaps you can comment, Samsuri.
Well, as you have rightly said, this is a question of attitude, a question of mentality. If I were to delve into this subject, just allow me, for example, to say here that unlike other countries which are constantly being threatened by all forms of natural disasters, we in Malaysia, these are generally, we always feel that Malaysia is a safe country. And for many years, Malaysians have claimed that we don't have to worry because, in our country, we don't have serious earthquakes. We don't have typhoons, for example. And we don't have volcanoes and all that. Unlike, for example, some of our neighboring countries. So as a result of this, Malaysians by and large, they are putting themselves in a comfort zone. I would call it just a comfort zone. They say if every time there's a problem, we leave it to the authorities. The fire services department, they will be able just to do the job, and then we will leave it, to the relevant authorities, to deal with these issues. But you see, it is important. I think the time has come for Malaysians to realize that we should no longer be in a comfort zone. On the contrary, for example, we must realize that our country, Malaysia, our beloved country, is no longer free from natural disasters. Take, for example,
Correct.
the tsunami in 2004. Take, for example, in 2015, when we had the earthquake in Mount Kinabalu,
Yes,
where a
correct.
number of people died. And also you take into account the number of landslides and so on. And also the fires, for example. So many fires have occurred in the country, where, for example, the people are living in
Tanshri? I'm hoping that we are having just a slight glitch in technical difficulty. We've just lost the connection with Tan Sri. We were talking, of course, about natural disaster mitigation, and Tan Sri Lee Dam Tai, chairman of the
in
Alliance for Safe Community. Tan Sri, we lost you for a few minutes there, Tan Sri,
oh dear.
on his thoughts about
Yeah,
safety.
as I yeah,
Tan Sri,
I was
we lost
talking
you
about.
for a few minutes there. Tan Sri, I think you got to restart whatever that you were mentioning earlier for a good like 30 seconds. We weren't able to hear you or see you. So you were talking about the natural disasters that we have generally been very fortunate in the past not to have a lot, but as we've seen, they've mentioned in 2004, the tsunami, 2015, we had the earthquakes in Mount Kinabalu, yet we don't have the same kind of mentality and mindset put in place in order for us to be able to manage oncoming disasters. Continue your conversation, Tasri.
Yeah, the point that I'm trying to put across is this: that the time has come, lah. I think for all of us to have a change in attitude, to have a change in our this mentality. We should no longer take for granted our safety, and we should no longer believe that every time, whenever there is a disaster, we can leave it to the authorities, and the authority will deal with everything. I think what is important for us to realize that Malaysians themselves must be aware that they can no longer be in a comfort zone. And for example, I think we must learn, from countries like Japan,
Yeah, you did mention Japan, and I think Taiwan was on your list as well earlier, Tansri, right?
disaster. Yeah, and I think as far as the authority are concerned, they always prepare the people to face these problems, to face these disasters. And the best way to do it, as I said, is by means of having a drill. For example, in an event of if there's an earthquake, they must be able to train the people through a drill. Okay, what are the do's and don'ts? In the event there is an earthquake. If there's a fire, what are the do's and don'ts? So I think what is important is this: that all fire drills carried out by the authorities, I think they must be taken very seriously by the public, by the
Yep.
people, either in residential areas or in workplaces. And if, for example, if they can learn something from the experience of more important to prepare them, to give them the confidence that they themselves can also be part, of the life saving that should be done, not only by the authorities but by the people themselves.
Now, I think we got to step back a little bit, Tan Sri, and look at it from a much more nuclear level with regards to family and the mindset of how families are breeding the culture of safety and the ability to be responsible for yourself, accountability for preparedness. Like you mentioned earlier, we generally have this attitude that an external party will come and rescue us, or the authority would be the one that is going to be able to do what's necessary, as opposed to having the skill sets ourselves to not just be able to handle those situations if disasters come, but have preventive measures so that we do not create those problems. Because if we are aware of the potential issues or disasters that can emerge, there are ways for us to create a better policies and steps to prevent these things from happening. So perhaps, is there any gold standard for disaster management? Are there stories that you're able to share, Tan Sri?
Well, I would say basically when you talk about educating, you talk about creating awareness, you talk about organizing safety campaigns for the people, for the public. Basically, all these steps have to be initiated by the government, because the government, they have the mechanism, they have the various government agencies, departments to carry out all these programs. They have got a budget, very important. They have got a budget to do all these things. So what they need to do is, as I said, to invest more. Authorities must invest more. Government must invest more in safety and health, and they must be able to do more. As I said, safety campaigns to bring down these campaigns down to the ground, so that they can be with the people, and the people must make an effort, to stay back and to participate in all these drills. And at the same time, I also believe that the non-government sector, the non-government organization, the private sector, for example, they also have a very important role to play. And for example, I just give a
Tan Sri? I think we're facing a little bit of technical difficulty again. Tan Sri Lilamtai was speaking to us, of course, about safety during natural disasters, and we're exploring the gold standards for disaster management. Tan Sri, we aren't able to hear you yet at this point of time. Tan Sri, we lost you again for about 30 seconds, Tan Sri, so we didn't hear you. Perhaps right now, let's move on slightly to talk about the recent floods at the end of last year, 2021, and I think it's still been raining, so there's still a lot of risk involved with regards to the rainy situation, the weather situation, and the flood situation. Perhaps you can give your comments about how we are dealing with this and how we can improve our management for these natural disasters, because it's been happening year-on-year basis. Your thoughts, Tan Sri?
Yeah, this is also a question of safety management. I mean, how do we manage, the floods, especially with regard to flood mitigation plans? Now, how can we improve in delivering an early warning system to be able to provide, information to the people on the ground, and this must not only be done, through our gadgets, what I mean, through the handphones, the WhatsApp, but more important, as I said, we have to mobilize, all the relevant departments, like, for example, the information department. They should actually go to the ground, and warn, the people to be prepared to evacuate, to move out, because the water level is rising. So I would say, looking at the recent floods, I think there is no doubt that we have not handled it well. By and large, I mean, from the reaction from the ground, from the response in the social media, we can say, for example, that the rescue efforts were delayed.
Tan Sri? We were speaking, of course, about the flood situation recently, and Tan Sri was commenting on the response and how the response.
Just a warning.
Tan Sri, we were talking about the rescue. Tan Sri, we lost you again. You were talking about the rescue being delayed. Perhaps you can reconnect again. We lost you for a few seconds as well. So the rescue, you were talking about the rescue situation.
No, I'm just. Yeah, I'm just referring, to the recent floods. Of course, we haven't even overcome the problem yet. But to talk about the beginning of the floods, I think the rescue efforts were very slow, despite the fact that the meteorological department, issued the warning. But I think the relevant agencies and departments were not in a fully prepared stage, to really go all out to carry out the rescue effort. And as a result, there were a lot of complaints, a lot of hardship. The people have to be on the rooftops, in order to avoid being drowned and so on. So I think what is needed is really a very strong, effective coordination. All the relevant agencies must be well coordinated so that once the signal is out, all of them will be able to carry out, the necessary tasks, the responsibilities in order to come to the rescue of those who are affected by the floods. And I think one other thing is very important is this. I think we must not only talk about dealing with floods. What is even more important to talk about the prevention. How do we prevent floods? How do we mitigate, the effects of flood? Now, these things should have been carried out much earlier in terms of helping to improve, providing more funds, a bigger budget, for example.
Oh, it looks like we've completely lost Tan Sri there. We were talking about mitigating procedures and processes in order for us to be able to handle oncoming natural disasters like floods. In the recent December 2021, a lot of hardships were experienced by those who were involved in the areas that were inundated with heavy rain. And we were discussing, of course, with regards to the safety mentality and culture that we would like to build. Tan Sri, we lost you completely.
Yeah, as I said, this is really I would say it's very stressful. Talking and then you get lost. No, I was talking about what is important when you talk about floods and disasters. We need to look into this prevention. Prevention is more important, or at least if you cannot totally prevent, then what you can do is to mitigate. Now, what needs to be done in this regard is actually for the government, the authorities again, to invest more in infrastructural works to improve our drainage system in the country. We also need, for example, in respect of development projects that are being carried out, we need to ensure that those people who are involved, they will be able to carry out their environmental impact assessment. To ensure that whatever work that they do will not have a serious impact on the environment. And much of the problems that we see today are as a result of the failure of carrying out proper environmental impact assessment that has eventually caused so much a problem. So really it's necessary for the government to be awakened. I think all the authorities must really buck up. I think they need to do more. And the public, as I said, they must continue to be very vigilant. The public must continue to articulate, to speak up, to voice out their problems. And I think this is something that must go together.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri. That's all the time that we have. Do you have any final message to Malaysians before we close? Just a closing statement?
Well, I think my message through this conversation is to wish that all Malaysians will pay greater heed to the aspect of safety, because it is something that they must take on board. It is something they must take ownership. It is something that they must make time, and effort to learn how to keep themselves safe. And by keeping themselves safe, I'm sure then they can avoid, a lot of unnecessary problems and issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for your time. That was, of course, Tan Sri Lee Lam Thye speaking to us as the chairman of the Alliance for Safe Community on the topic of safety during natural disasters. Now, in times of disasters, we can see the best and worst of us emerge. Now, in these challenging situations, the best way forward is always to not panic, stay focused, and work together to find an effective and efficient solution. Preparedness will always be key to handling unforeseen situations. Training starts not when trouble has arisen. It is before there are signs that we need to already gear ourselves up for potential concerns. Now let's keep our heads up and endeavor to contribute and make life a little better for each other, as we're all part of the same circle of life. And for us to thrive, we need to rise above the individual. Thanks for staying with me till the end of this episode of The Nation, and have a wonderful year 2022 year ahead. I'm Milena Blah. Bye for now.